Welcome. Let me share a little bit about the incredible two guests that we have with us today. Dwight and Maddox, aka the Connections and Community Guys, are certified coaches and co founders of For the Love of Creatives. They're passionate about building community, fostering collaboration, and empowering creatives to thrive. Their online platform, podcasts, and events allow creatives to connect and co elevate. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Dwight and Maddox. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, April.
Yes, thank you. We're very honored to be here and excited to share the conversation.
Yeah.
This is going to be such a fun conversation because you two are just some of the quirkiest, funnest guys that I know. And we can talk a little bit about that and share with our audience how we initially got started and how we got to know each other. But let's start by sharing a little, having you guys share a little bit about yourself with the audience so they can get to know you more. And I have this feeling that maybe Maddox would like to go first.
Okay, I'd be happy to. A little bit of my background. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we can get to know you guys more. Just a little bit about who you are.
My life has been mostly about people. I have been in a customer-driven or client-driven business my whole life. I was in family businesses, the automotive, but I was always on the front where the customers always were. I was a career salon professional for 40 years, retiring the end of 2019. So everything I've done has really been in service to others. And it's the thing that feeds my soul the most. And the thing that I love is having a positive impact and giving back to humanity.
Well, being in the salon service, that, I mean, for as long as you did, that's definitely, I mean, you're having conversations with people, intimate conversations half the time, right? Where people really want to share themselves with you. And so you begin to become this conversationalist so easily.
Well, and that's what drove me to become a coach. When coaching hit the scene and there started to be articles and things about it, I remember reading an article and going, oh my God, that's exactly what I do every day. Even though I'm doing it while I'm doing hair and makeup, it's what I do. And so it was just a natural progression to lean in and get certified. And now I have several certifications. So it's been, even though it's been official for fewer years, I've been coaching my whole life.
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely throughout life, this has always been navigating you in this direction. Now, Dwight, tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. I would say that for most of my life, I followed a path and did what was expected. I mean, down to doing all the normal things growing up and taking a little bit of a longer path to find myself. I was in my early 20s when I enlisted in the Army, and it was during the height of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And as a gay man in the military, having to deal with having a position that required a security clearance, well, let's just say the final year was a bit intense because I had to deal with the scrutiny of the Defense Intelligence Agency having done their job and needing me to confess to my crimes, as it were. And thankfully, I was able to get out of that unscathed and managed to transition back to a life of working for a large software company for a number of years in many roles. I worked as a consultant, and the pandemic brought with it some harsh life lessons. I was in a marriage that I would say I took largely for granted until we were facing serious health concerns at the same time that the healthcare system was being ravaged, and
Mm.
that those final years were the absolute best. And it was a wonderful gift to be able to say goodbye to someone who was such a wonderful companion. But the grief of the loss in early 22 caused me to have to go on a journey of discovery. And part of that was doing a lot of work on things that had gone unhealed, and meeting myself in ways that I hadn't in my then over 45 years. And at the end of it, I happened to meet this coach who took me along with him on a
Yeah.
trip conference where I met a whole lot of other coaches and got to see a lot of ways that I had also been applying craft and as a consultant for the software company. And it was just a natural progression to further the training and uh, go further down that road. So that's kind of what led us together.
Wow, Dwight, you just shared so much intimate information and it's so beautiful. Thank you. I want to say for that vulnerable share because and in detail, what it was like for you. You took advantage of your marriage until sickness came about, and then you had the most wonderful years after that. So you really turned that around in such a lovely way that we would all want before passing, right? We would want that loving connection that maybe we didn't have prior to. So that is such a beautiful share. Thank you. And talking about community, you
Mhm.
two met through community
We
initially.
did.
Yes.
We did in a roundabout sort of way. I During the pandemic, I was single and locked in my house by myself for 2 years, and I made the proclamation that when it was over with and I could take off the mask and go back out into the street, I was going to do whatever I had to do to create a rich social life. I wanted my home to be a social hub.
Mhm.
And somewhere right along that time, a friend of mine turned me on to a book. I read the book. The book was called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. Um, Creating big relationships with small gatherings. And I read the book and started to host small gatherings in my home. Now, I had been entertaining most of my life, but this was a whole different kind of entertaining. And I got an opportunity to meet the author of the book and speak to him. And meanwhile, this one was doing the same thing. He had met the author and been turned on to the book and had read the book and was hosting small gatherings in his home because, as he said, he had said goodbye to a husband of 20 years that passed and he needed new friends and new community. And we were only about, I don't know, 20 miles away from each other.
Right.
Didn't know each other
Wow.
from Adam, but we're on the same trajectory. And the author thought it would be fun to introduce us because we just had some things in common. And it was very clear to me that he wasn't trying to set us up,
Right.
but he said, is it okay if I invite Dwight to your next party? And I said, sure, of course. So he did. And I reached out to Dwight a couple of weeks before the gathering and said, look, I know that you don't know me. You're not going to know any of the guests at my party. It's so awkward to come into a space where you don't know a single soul. Why don't we meet for coffee or a bite of food so we can meet each other? And then you at least know one person in the room when you get there. And he said, okay. And so we did indeed meet. And we hadn't been together for 10 minutes over dinner when the sparks flew. And the sparks flew. And here we
Yeah.
are. So he came 2 weeks later, he came to that party. And 30 days after that, the next one, and everyone since then, we've hosted together.
That's just beautiful. I love that story when you share it, and thank you for sharing it with our audience because I've heard it, but I think it's worth sharing over and over and over again because, again, this conversation with community and all the things that you continue to build and project out into the world, and the importance of that, and having each other and thriving together, right? Is that you guys met each other through that. And so these incredible things, magic happens when we put ourselves out there and step out of our comfort zone and really engage with the rest of the world.
It's incredibly serendipitous. When I think about it, I think, what are the odds, not of just meeting each other, but meeting each other, loving to host the events and bring people together. Then he watches what I'm doing as a coach and says, I want that,
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of alignment there, beyond just the regular relationship alignment. And it has, the gathering started out being just to make some new friends. And, it's blossomed. It's just continued to blossom into more and more. And people ask, well, how did you land on working with creatives? And our answer is, it chose us. They chose us.
Yeah.
'Cause we didn't go, oh, we think we need to really target creatives as our audience. No, they chose us. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we tried lots of different ways of being able to appeal to different groups. And it just seemed that the events that we had that were targeted toward creatives were the ones where people showed up more fully. They were just more engaged, and there was just a lot more energy in the room.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun. And we realized how much we resonate with other creative folks. Just the openness and the diversity and so on and so forth.
This is definitely where I want to dive right in, because this creative aspect, let's define this, because we have really been, many of us have this idea of what a creative is and what a creative isn't. So let's share a little bit about that. What is your guys' definition of a creative?
A creative is, well, we're all potentially creative. And I believe that there are those people who may deny their creativity, but the reality is, in order to make it through any day, no matter how mundane, you're faced with a series of choices. And it may be that you are doing something that you've done 100 times before, but you may discover a way to do it better. And in that moment, you're engaging in the act of creation. It can, we look at certain fields and we label them as creative. We think that it's what happens just on a canvas, or just what's happening when someone's making music. They're doing things to entertain us. But in reality, creativity is a part of what it is to be human. If we were to look at the earliest traces of what we can call humanity, the thing that really draws it apart is that we can identify that someone was showing that they were there and they mattered, and that they did something and it meant something. So I think that it's, while creativity can be something that we hold up as being very light, I think it's a very profound statement of what it is for us to just be human beings.
I think too, there's being creative.
Mhm.
And as you said, we fully believe that every human being is creative in some shape, form, or fashion. There is being creative. And then there are those people, and these are the people that are our target audience, that identified not as it doing creativity, but as being a creative. And it's basically two different types of people. Now, is there some crossover? Yeah, there is. There is. But the vast majority of people that are drawn to what we're doing, they literally will tell you, I am a creative. And we believe that for ourselves. I will tell you, I am definitely a creative. Now, it may not be brushing paint on a canvas. Most of my creativity shows up in the form of ideas, and particularly ideas about how to bring people together.
Right. And you just fully embody that aspect of yourself, the definition of the identity of being a creative. Now, I'd be curious to know, Dwight and Maddox, do you feel more comfortable surrounded by creatives who identify as such? And or do you also enjoy shining the light on others to show them their creative selves and allow them to have the knowing that they too have the potential to be creative?
I would say yes,
Yes,
all of the above.
to most of that. I would say that I don't think that I'm necessarily more comfortable, but there is a certain resonance.
Mm.
I'm comfortable in most people's presence. If they're kind, gentle human beings, I'm comfortable with most people. But there's something about the creatives that we're very, very drawn to, or I'm very drawn to, and it has to do with, it's not across the board, but I find creatives to be very open people. And in our marketing, we talk about heart-centered creatives.
Yeah.
And so that's what we attract. And our groups are also always very, very diverse. And that's something that I've noticed. I have had friends that owned a gallery for years, and I never missed one of their gallery openings. And so I got exposed to lots of artists, lots of art, and lots of art interested and, collectors and people that appreciated art. And I just found across the board, for the most part, they're just more open-minded. And there's just this diversity where you're going to see a little bit of every kind of human being in the room when there's art involved. And that's something that we both really, really love. So we've gone to great lengths to curate and orchestrate that into everything we do. We want people of every age category, all genders, all gender expressions, all sexual orientations, all skin colors, all backgrounds, the different, the more fascinating, and the more fabulous. The more the people
you're pleasant, right?
The higher the energy is. We found that to be true with every gathering.
Without exception.
Say that one more time.
The more different people are in the room, the higher the energy is.
The more diversity, more different, the higher the energy. That is such a very cool observation. I really appreciate you saying that. And something that I hear you guys say is that you're very drawn to this. People tend to be more open-minded when they feel creative or are creative in the world. And you guys certainly drew me in with a lot of your wording, and you mentioned it. It's that heart-centered piece. And I want to talk a little bit about that. We're going to share exactly how I came to know the two of you when we come back from this commercial. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone. Here with Dwight and Maddox for the love of creatives. And we're having an incredible conversation about community and what that's like and what the definition of creative is, and that we all have the potential to meet that. And I want to share a little bit about specific words and what it's like to be with people in the room that are creative. But something that drew me to Dwight and Maddox initially was their approach to me. Now, many of us live in the day and age, especially since we've had the pandemic happen, where we are online so much of the time. It was a period where we didn't get to see each other face to face. And so we really utilized what we have nowadays, which is a beautiful, incredible time in history that we have access to that, but everything is virtual, right? And so there's a difference between having that and being on camera that there is being in person. But we still need that in-person human connection. And I believe in both. I believe that we need both. So the way that you two initially addressed me, it was just a cool way. You sent a video and you are so quirky and fun. I'm like, my gosh, I have to meet these two. But not only that, is you use specific wording that really grasped my attention, because it's very much of what we're about here within the Driven Living community, but it was heart-centered. And you talked about just having this community of heart-centered people. And I was like, sold, you got me. And when we are searching out communities that we want to be a part of, it sometimes takes many to go to. And I believe that that's why you guys really want to create something that is a safe place for others. And when you're an entrepreneur or you're a creative and you're an artist or what have you, you are going out and you're advocating for yourself. So you're going to socials, you're going to networking events, and finding the right place is really key. So let's dive in a little bit about those aspects.
I think heart-centered is, that's a big pull. It draws a lot of people. I think also you see the word authentic above us up there. Every salutation or email signature says authentically Maddox and Dwight. Mm-hmm. I think that also we've had a lot of people give us feedback about both of those terms that we use. The thing I love about heart-centered creatives, or just heart-centered, is it's a polarizing term. Mm. People either know right away whether that's them or it's not them. The people that resonate with that, like you did, you're drawn in, you want to know more. Then there's those that are not heart-centered, and it sends them pretty much screaming and running. Yeah. That doesn't sound comfortable to them at all. And I'm very much a believer, and I think I've kind of like convinced him that polarization is our friend. Yeah. So we intentionally do a lot of things that polarize our audience, because it kind of eliminates the wannabes or the maybes. It's either a hell yes or a hell no, and there's nothing much in between. And we really are looking for the hell yeses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such an incredibly important aspect when we talk about building business or building community. And really, essentially, business is attracting, the clients, attracting the right kind of people. You don't want the wrong people in your business. That doesn't do any good where you're expending your energy, right? And so I think that is a really vital piece that you bring up, Maddox, is you want to have things where it's going to be an absolute yes for some people and it's going to be an absolute no for people. Do you guys mind sharing a few other techniques that you do that helps you navigate the absolute yes and the absolute no?
Well, you talked about the quirky thing in our videos. I think that's probably very much
that's the core.
Intentional as well. Some of the quirkiness comes from the fact that we don't do a lot of rehearsing, or a lot of what we do, we shoot from the hip.
Yeah, we show up fully as we are. And I think a lot of that encourages people to appreciate that, oh, wait, instead of having something that's incredibly polished, I've seen instances where something has been rehearsed to the point that there's no soul left in it.
I can remember one video that we did where we started the video and we started recording, and all of a sudden there was this point where we were both kind of looking at each other, and he goes, "I thought you were going to say that." And I said, "No, you were supposed to say that," you know.
Right.
And we
We left it in.
left it in and just kept on talking. We laughed, you know, and then we went ahead and said what there was to say, and we went on and we left that in. And we do that because we want people to just see us as everyday human beings, just
Mhm.
like them. We want people to just see us as real and fallible, and you know, we've got, you know, warts like everybody else.
Yeah.
We're human.
What kind of feedback are you guys getting from that?
Mostly we get little comments for, "Oh my God, y'all are so cute." You know, people just seem to eat it up. Like they just love the fact that, you know, we just leave the mistakes in. If we do something like idiotic,
Yeah.
we just laugh. We laugh and we
Right.
leave it in because it's our life. You know, we
Mhm.
try to
Yeah.
inject as much of our life as we can in everything we do. We don't overly rehearse when we're hosting one of our large events. You were just at one recently. Um,
Mhm.
I've got a little cheat sheet, and we kind of know what we want to do, but there's still an element of shooting from the hip and going, "Oh, hey guys, you know, I was supposed to do this way back then. I forgot, you know," and we don't think anything about that.
No.
Like I don't ever go, "Oh my gosh," I don't beat myself up because I did something in the wrong order. We just laugh and we go on because it's a human thing. You know, I think this time I said to the group, I had my cheat sheet. It was the very beginning of the event. And I said, you know, we've all heard the term, you know, women of a certain age. Well, I'll tell you, I'm a man of a certain age. And so I've got a cheat sheet because I can't remember this, you know what.
Um,
And
I
everybody
think
just,
that that is so important. Yeah, well, laughter, absolutely, humor, but it's the relational piece where we don't feel, so outnumbered or awkward because there's others doing and being the same way. And so it's this really nice, light way of just feeling like, one another, a part of the group.
at one point, I remember learning that anytime I go first, it doesn't matter whether it's in a class and I raise my hand or when it's in a big circle and they're saying, "Who wants to share?" I learned that when I go first, I give everybody else in the room the gift of going second. I give them permission to go second.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
you know, a lot of people might view it as, why does he always raise his hand and go first? Well, you know, what's that about? Well, it's about me setting the stage, me letting everybody know that it's okay, that it's not scary, that you can go first and you can trip and you can fall and you can say something stupid and everybody's still going to love you anyway because you're you.
We like to follow what others do. You'll see it in traffic. I mean, that's a really great way to see it straight on. If you hang back just a little bit, and you're creating a good cushion. It's safe driving practices anyway, but you'll start to observe everybody kind of just packs up and they're all together, right?
Mhm.
And so, but we tend to follow the lead. And Manly and I see it when we go dancing, and we'll be the first ones out on the dance floor, but then we're not alone any longer. Eventually people muster enough encouragement and they come dance alongside us. And so you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you brought up that point.
And a lot of the things that we do in our events, we have portions where people they're encouraged to all participate. So we'll have an opening circle and we'll do icebreakers. And the way that we run them, there's a very specific reasoning behind the things that we do. We make it so that everyone has an opportunity to hold the floor. But because we place a limit on what it is that they share, those people that would consume all the oxygen in the room are given a cutoff. And those people that would be more comfortable just sitting in the corner and observing are given room to be able to say what's on their heart and do it in such a way that they don't feel like they're singled out because they're just they're just doing what everyone else is doing, and it feels okay.
And it's great because everybody participates. Nobody's forced to. We had one event where 7 minutes into the event, some guy goes, I'm sorry, I don't belong here. I have to go. He was just completely freaked out and darted out the door. And we were like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. But
Yeah.
everybody else in all the events that we've done, every single person participates. Nobody sits out. Everybody gets to be seen and everybody gets to be heard.
You really allow a lot of aspects of vulnerability, allowing people, like you said, to be seen and heard. And something that I want to bring out again is that to not take anything personally. When that guy ran out, he's like, this just isn't for me. Or when you're really creating the foundation and the wording for people to say, yeah, that's for me, or no, that's for me right off the bat. It's just important to not take anything personally. I think as we start to build our communities to really understand that. So those are two really important keys. You guys have some other important keys to add to that when we are building a thriving community.
I have a philosophy, and I've had this philosophy for many, many years, back to that polarization thing. When somebody doesn't resonate with who I am or what I'm about, and they do that scream and run thing, I'm always grateful, because in that moment, because I always say people are either going to scream and run. I'm a polarizer. Everything about my personality is polarizing. They're either going to scream and run, or they're going to come and sit right next to me. And the ones that scream and run, I'm so grateful for them, because now they've created space for the right person to come and sit next to me. So I never, ever take it personally. I always think, what a gift they have given me when they scream and run.
So true.
That's a great way to put it, because when we talk about the energies in, opening up so other things can flow in, the release and that reciprocity piece to energy exchange. And so that's a really beautiful way to explain it.
Yes. I know that your theme here is wellness. And so I just got to kind of jump in here and say that because I've just been giving it a little thought. I didn't no ideas here other than just thinking about, for us, we've talked about it, how community plays a really, really big role in wellness.
Yeah.
Huge.
When we look at statistics of older people who become isolated as they get older, and it shortens their life because they're not having community. And that's not, we see it in older people, but the truth is, not having a community affects every human being the same. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Right.
Introverts tend to think they don't need community, that they're completely fine with being by themselves. But I'll tell you what, I am kind of somewhere in the middle. So I understand the introvert and the extrovert. But to me, there is a big difference between isolation and solitude. And isolation is generally not something that we curate or meditate. It's not an intentional thing, whereas solitude can be. And there is such a thing as healthy solitude. And then there's such a thing as unhealthy solitude when it shifts into isolation. We also have come to where we say all the time to anybody that will listen, if you are not in community, you are surviving. If you are in community, you are thriving. Now, there may be a few exceptions to that, but it's few and far between.
I love that saying. I absolutely love it. Community or thriving. And it makes a whole lot of sense, because we get to play off of each other with ideas and create together. And so I I think that when you bring in wellness to community, it's absolutely essential. And we've seen that through, like you said, the sciences. We've seen that oftentimes people who have been partners for years and years, that after one passes, it won't be long after that the other will pass. That's a just, short example. But we also look at the blue zone studies, and community is one of those vital aspects of longevity.
Mhm.
It is. And it's also important to call out that community can look lots of ways.
For sure.
Anytime there are two or more people together, that is a community. And we're not limited to any number of communities that we can have. We don't stop to realize that so much of our life is some form of a community. If you're in a class where you interact with the other classmates on a regular basis, that's a community. Now, given it may be a temporary community, but it's still a community.
Yeah, you choose how you show up in the world, and there's a way that you can go about your daily activity and be an island. I'd say that there is an invisible hand that's guiding people to do exactly that, because a lot of times people are supposed to get their needs met by just being hypnotized by their devices, when they could do themselves a solid by just engaging a little bit more. It doesn't matter if we're talking about your choice when boarding a flight, talking to the person next to you, or
Um,
the
I love that.
the the default now is to put on your noise canceling headphones and pretend like
Mm,
there is no one else on the plane.
yeah.
We have a tendency to hit Chipotle once a week because we love their bowls. And we go in and we walk up to the counter, and whoever's on the other side of the little glass there says, can I help you? And I always say, hey, hi, how are you this evening? And 9 times out of 10, they look at me like I have 3 heads. But at the same time, I can feel their energy shift. It's
Yeah,
like
you're
in that
snapping them out
moment,
of that mundane.
even if it was just a brief moment, that person and I were in community for just a moment because I took an interest in how he was doing. And most people don't walk into fast food restaurants and take any interest in the person that is serving the food. And it gets people's attention. And it
Man,
feels
those are
good.
it does, it feels incredible. And those are really great, tiny little shifts that you can make to engage. And we talked about reciprocity a little bit, and that is doing just that. It's serving someone else and feeling that exchange of gratefulness, that being heard, being seen aspect of just being present with somebody else. And that is one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another, is being present.
And it's a gift that we give ourselves. I'm in the moment. I'm realizing that when I speak to people like that in situations where people mostly don't speak to people in those service positions, that it contributes to my personal wellness.
Mhm.
Now, I have heard you say before, Maddox, that when you haven't been around people for a period of time, you really start to feel low energy. You don't feel good. You don't feel yourself. And I feel like that is something that would be a very good observation that we could all do, because when we talk about overall well-being, it's important to notate what are the things that we're lacking and missing, the essential pieces. Am I eating the right foods? Am I getting outside, with sun? Am I drinking enough water? Those things. Am I getting enough sleep? I mean, those are all very top notch things. So to be observant of what is going in, on, and around you in your life, and what is your lifestyle like at that moment. But you have mentioned that to me a number of times, which is why I know that you guys partially have created, if you can't seem to get it right, you create what you need. And I
Mhm.
think that is a big piece of this conversation is, yes, you can create the community that you so long for and desire.
Well, and it's a very slippery slope and a double-edged sword, because in the last few weeks, I have come to the awareness that here we are, we're preaching connection and we're preaching community. And we have been so wrapped up and so busy in our business that we have not invested in social time much recently. We have not invested in people and community and our friends.
Mhm.
And I had this awareness maybe only just about a week or so ago, where I went, oh my God, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not practicing what we're preaching, and realizing that we had been working so hard and not made time for community, that I was feeling drained, because community feeds me. Now, I'm an ambivert. And so I do love being around people to a point. I can be at an event in the evening and having a wonderful time, and all of a sudden I hit this spot and it's like time to go, because now I need to go home and I need to recharge my battery, and I recharge my
Yeah.
battery by being still and being alone. But being
Mm.
still and alone too much does the opposite. It drains the battery. So there's this fine, for an ambivert, for me, there's this fine line between getting the balance of time with people, which feeds me a certain type of energy, and then having that stillness, quietness with myself that feeds me a separate type or different type of energy. And they work beautifully together as long as I'm getting some sense of balance. It doesn't have to be dead center. It just has to be, when I get on either end of the continuum, it's not good. My happy place
Mm.
is somewhere away from the edges, because I mean, metaphorically, I'm going to fall off the edge. So I don't want to be near the edge.
I love that you bring that up, and the importance of really listening to ourselves and what we need in order to recharge the battery, as you mentioned, and having that harmony and creating those periods in our life, and having a time period for this and having a time period of that, so we're meeting all of those needs, but really listening to ourselves fully. Now, you guys have truly created so much out of community, and it's amazing that we can build upon so much. It's as if there's infinite possibilities. So, you have created community, in-person events, you've created podcasts, you're doing another podcast that you just launched, which is incredible, for the love of creatives. And so I invite people to tune into that, because you have a lot of great guests that are really stemmed towards that creative and community aspect. And you have a online community as well. So let's share with the audience. I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. We've had it displayed here on the screen for those of you watching, for those of you listening in. fortheloveofcreatives.com. Visit
Make sure you put the S on
fortheloveofcreatives.com.
creatives. Sometimes people leave the S off, so make sure you get that S on there.
Yeah, sometimes autocorrect kills it.
Well, you'll know when you get to that site, because it is beautiful and it's vibrant, and I love your branding. And I know I mentioned that to you before, that the branding is really on point, and our branding is a mere reflection of ourselves. And so you guys have done an incredible job. What are
It's
you two?
quirky and colorful and whimsical, just
It,
like we are.
it is. I love how you said that. Quirky, colorful, whimsical. I don't think I said that in order, but just like you guys are.
Mm.
And I'm curious, what are you two most excited about creating right now?
I would say our membership. It's been a long time coming, and we're not even there quite yet, but it's the big dream. It's the big dream. Right now, we bring people together for events. We bring people together with a podcast, but the dream is to bring people together on a more continual and on-demand availability.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a feeling with the events where a great deal of effort goes into the lead up, and the day of, there is so much intensity, and there's just kind of a lull, a letdown after. And we try to keep the momentum by encouraging people to stay connected and to make it more than just that evening. And the community, the online membership is the piece that is going to make it so that we can really fuel that, to make it so that rather than there being a one-time event, or if there's someone that really wanted to be a part of it that couldn't because of other life obligations, they've got an outlet, a channel for being able to access the wealth of resources and the treasures that all of the people that show up to those events bring.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you create something wonderful, and people want more of that. They crave more. And so, how else can they engage in further exploring who you are, what you are, the community that you are creating, and get to be in the room with you and those that they have shared that time with?
Yeah, we're definitely working on it. Sometimes, like I say, too hard, there was something you said a minute ago. I'm backing up just a little bit because it just really made me think of what a unique position we're in. We host these events, and this is our business. And but this has put us in a position where we have met so many incredible people, more than we could ever really develop a meaningful relationship with, you being one of those people. But it's given us this unique situation where, and now in our personal life, away from the business, we reach out to people that we've connected with via the business, and we pulled them into personal social settings, a small gathering at our house, or we're sitting around the fire pit on the rooftop deck or something of this nature. And it's contributed to our lives in ways that most of the time your business maybe wouldn't. And we feel really, I think, very, very grateful and blessed for that. It's just not every business would work that way, because there is this. I mean, when I first went into business as a young man, my father said, "You don't mix business and pleasure. Your clients aren't your friends." And I thought, that may work for you, but that's not the way I'm going to do it.
Ah, that really does turn things around a little bit I think the world is shifting so much to think differently and do things differently. And that certainly is utilizing our creative outlets, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You two have been extraordinary guests. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing all of the things that you're doing and creating in the world. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
I have something I'd like to share, and that is, we have a loneliness and isolation epidemic in our world right now. And it doesn't have to be that way. If you're listening to this and you're feeling isolated or lonely, buy the book we referred to, The 2-Hour Cocktail Party. It is so easy, and it's such a magical way to meet people and make new friends. We literally walked up to people on the hiking trail, the barista in a coffee shop. We saw somebody interesting, and we'd walk up and just say, "We're hosting a party. Would you like to come?" No one ever said no. And that was the way we got our start, by just walking up to strangers and inviting them to hang out with us. If we would watch people kind of at a distance. And if they seemed like they were putting off a good vibe and it felt right, we'd walk up and strike up a conversation. And after 40 years of being a beauty professional, I can size people up really, really fast. So in a moment or two, I knew whether we wanted to have them in our home or not. And we would place an invite, and people would get so excited, and they would come. And there's no reason to be lonely and isolated. You don't have to have a fabulous house. You don't have to know anything about entertaining. You just have to invite people and strike up a conversation. It is so easy.
It's incredibly easy
and so rewarding.
You just have to be willing to try, willing to put yourself out.
Most of the world waits to receive an invitation. my words of wisdom are stop waiting to receive an invitation and start placing the damn invitations.
Oh man, that is really good words of wisdom. You're you're absolutely right. People really want and crave that. And it's fascinating how we work as human beings, kind of just being on the sidelines and waiting for something to happen. So thank you again for sharing that with us, with our audience. And if you happen to be in Dallas, people, check out one of their events. Go to a Love of Creatives event. And what do you call it again, Dwight and
The
Maddox?
experience.
Yeah,
The experience. And it is an experience. And so if you have ventured along this discussion this entire time, then you're in the right place. So we invite you to come check it out. And I can say, as my own testimony, I feel very comforted, loved, and enjoy my time going to these events. And I've been to a lot of events. So thank
Yes,
you
and
again.
you've also been over for just away from the business and just the social time here at the house.
I have, and you guys have such a great house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, you two are wonderful. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being our guests on the Wellness Driven Life Show. And thank you so much. You're absolutely welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. And thank you to our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So goodbye for now, and we will see you next time.